The do while statement is very similar to the while loop. The only difference between the do while and the while is when the test is going to take place. In the while loop, the while with the test was at the top. And so immediately the first thing that happened was the test was happening. And so we would say that the while loop is a pre-test loop. We test before we go into the loop. The do while is a little different. The syntax for the do while is that you have the word do, and then you have the block of statements that you need to do. And after the block of statements, you close the curly brace and you write while, and then the test in parentheses, and then you have a semicolon. Notice the semicolon is here. It was not in the while loop. And so the way the code flows with the do while is that you immediately when you start, the first thing you're going to do are the blocks of statements, the statement block. So you're going to do the statements first, and then after you do the statements, the code moves down and it sees the while and it does a check. If the test is true, it's going to loop around and do the block of statements again. So if the test is true, it goes back and does the statement. And it's going to keep doing the statements, checking, doing the statements, checking, doing the statements, until the checking gives it a false and it ends. Now, here is an example of a do while. Let's see what's going to happen. We start off with n equals 4, and then this code says print me n, so it's going to print 4. And then it says minus minus n, and then the 4 becomes a 3. And then it's going to check, is n greater than 0? Yes, 3 is greater than 0. So it's going to loop around again, and now it's going to print 3. So it printed 4, it's going to print 3, make it 2, and then check. 2 greater than 0? Yes. Print 2, make it 1, greater than 0. Print 1, make it 0. And now 0 is not greater than 0. So it stops. So basically this code prints 4, 3, 2, 1. It doesn't print 0. So our stopping is 1 because we don't have an equal sign here. Could I have done this with a while loop? Yeah. Basically, I would say I'm going to start with n equals 4. And then I will say while n is greater than 0, print n, and minus minus n. These two pieces of code are exactly the same. No difference. So whether you choose to do a while loop or a do while, it's up to you. Now, is there a case when it's going to produce different output? Yes, and that's why, of course, it's in Java. So let's look at this code here. We have x is 1, and then here it says print me x. So now what it's going to print is 1, and then it comes and checks, is x less than 0? Is 1 less than 0? And the answer is no, 1 is not less than 0. So this loop will end and it will just continue with what's after. So this loop ran how many times? It ran 1 time. It printed 1. Now, if we were to write this code with a while, so all we do is kind of move this while test to the beginning and remove the word do and remove the semicolon. Now this test that we're doing is at the beginning. So we have x is 1, and immediately we're going to test, is 1 less than 0? And the answer is no. And so this loop will not run. So because the while loop is a pre-test loop, we test at the beginning, we might have a loop that never runs. If this test fails at the beginning, it will never run. It's kind of like when we're asking the user for a grade and we're doing input validation. If from the first time they enter a good grade, there's no reason for us to tell them invalid grade. So with a while loop, what you're doing is you're testing before you're going in. You're doing a pre-test. The do while will do the statements 1 time before testing. So you are guaranteed that you have a loop that will run 1 time. When is it a good time to use a do while? Usually when you have some code that you want to do at least 1 time. So if we were to go back and look at the code that we wrote in the last video, here what we did was we were asking the user to enter a grade, and then we were giving them the instructions again to enter the grade again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code, which is using a while, and I'm going to switch it to be a do while. Okay, so this is using a while loop. Use a while loop to add the classwork grades of the year until they enter negative 100, which is the sentinel value. Now, what we want to do is we want to use a do while. So let's copy it one more time and put it up here. So now we're doing a do while. Okay. So instead of the while test being here, what we're going to do is we're going to take that line and we're going to drag it and put it at the end with a semicolon. And where the while was, we put the word do. So if you have any while loop and you want to convert it to a do while, that's all you do. You take that while test, put it at the end with a semicolon and put a do. Now there's a little bit of change that we need to do because we're asking the user. So here, I don't have to ask the user at the beginning before the do because I know this code is going to happen at least one time. So I want to put it in the do. So I'm going to take these two pieces of code and put them inside. So here what I'm doing is I'm asking the user to enter the grade. I'm reading the grade in. I will need to first check if it's negative 100. So if classwork does not equal negative 100, I am going to go ahead and add it. And then I don't have to ask them again because the first thing that the do while does is ask. So here you're kind of getting rid of the update. And so I don't have to do these two lines. So basically what I'm doing is I'm asking them for a grade, reading it in, making sure it's not negative 100, and then I'm adding it. And then the code is going to come here. It's going to check again that the classwork is not negative 100. And because here we're checking, this variable really needs to be created at the top. Set it to 0. And so here we're just setting classwork equal. We're not creating a new variable. Okay, so this is one way that I would do this do while. Basically, I'm asking them for the grade. I check, I read it in, I check to make sure it's not negative 100. And if it's not, I add it. And then here the while loop will check again. And if it was negative 100, it will just stop. So this is one way we could do it. Let's run it and test it. So here, if I say 10, 20, 30, and then negative 100, it tells me that the total is 60. Okay, now what if I wanted to keep this initialization outside like we did before? Let's try that too, to show you how you would do that. And both are fine. Let's copy this. Let's comment this out again. Okay, so here, let's say I wanted to keep the reading outside, the initialization before the do while, because that's what I like doing. So if we did that, we'll put the word float. So my initialization is happening before the do while. And then inside, because the test is at the bottom, I still need to do this if check. If I don't do this if check, what I'm going to end up doing is adding the negative 100 to the classwork total. So I read something, I will make sure it's not negative 100. It's not, I add it. I'm still now need to do my update. When these two lines were inside the do, they were acting as an update. But here I don't have anything to update. I'm not reading anymore inside the do while, so I don't have an update. So those two lines, I need to copy them again and put them inside here without the word float. So the way now it's going to work is I ask them for a grade, read it in, and then I start my do, where I check it's not negative 100, it's not, I add it, and then I do my update and ask them again. And this will also work. So it's a preference, which one you like doing. You know, of course, in this case, I would have just preferred to use the while loop because it's a little cleaner because I don't have to do this if check. But if you want to do the do while, you can also. So this is the end of today's lecture. So for the classwork, what you're going to do is you're going to practice using the while and do while a couple times. So you're going to write several things. So the first thing is you're going to write, you're going to print me the numbers from 10 to 20 inclusive. Inclusive means including 10 and including 20. You're going to do it one time with a while loop, and then you're going to do it another time with a do while, and then you're going to ask the user for a number between 10 and 20 and print the even numbers between that number the user enters and 50. So if the user enters 12, you're going to print the even numbers from 12 to 50. If the user enters 18, you're going to print the even numbers from 18 to 50. Okay? You're going to do input validation. This is a little involved, so do it in steps. So the first thing is get it to work to print the even numbers from that number up to 50. And then add input validation. If the user enters a number not between 10 and 20, they enter 0, they enter 8, they enter 29, then you need to make sure that you ask them again. So you're doing input validation, and then you're going to print a range of values. Now, what if the user enters 11? If you're printing, if you have code that says add 2, like, you have a loop that starts with the number they entered, and you're adding 2. So if they entered 12, you're adding 2, making it 14. Adding 2, making it 16. If you do that, and the user enters an odd number like 11, what you're going to end up doing is printing the odd numbers, 11, 13, 15, 17. So you need to think how you're going to be only printing the even numbers. Okay, you might have to do some kind of if statement that helps you with that. If you get stuck, let me know during class or office hours and I'll help you, but I want you to think about how you're going to do that. Okay.